Welcome to this month's Minute with Victor, where Dr. Cotton answers your questions.
This month's question comes from a physician who writes, when nursing homes send patients to the emergency department, they usually send along a copy of the patient's living will. As the ED physician, this puts me in a difficult situation because I first have to figure out what the living will says so that I know what to do, and it really slows things down. Is there a way to make this easier? Yes, I would start by talking to the patient. Remember, if the patient's mentally competent, if he's able to communicate and think clearly, then he makes the decisions and the living will is irrelevant. Now, if the patient isn't competent, perhaps he's demented or obtunded, then I would look to any family members who might be available, because regardless of what the living will says, the family's most likely going to be involved, so I would look to them for direction. Now, if you can't reach the family, then I would just treat the patient. The nursing home sent him to the ED for a reason, and the reason is probably for him to be treated, so that's what I do. And then when the family arrives, you can figure out the next steps. Now, what about the living will? Well, I don't think it's useful in this situation, and here's why. In order for a living will to be valid, most states require it to be in a certain format and to be signed and witnessed in a certain way, which means that before you use a living will, you have to determine whether it meets those requirements, assuming you know what they are. In addition, you have to determine whether the living will is operative. You see, a living will doesn't take effect until the patient's condition reaches a certain point, and that point varies from state to state. And the problem here is that you have to make these determinations in the rush of the ED, and if you misinterpret something, you could wind up making a decision based on a document that's not legally valid, and that would be a terrible mistake. There's no question that patients have the right to direct their own lives, and if the patient's wishes are known, we should certainly respect them. However, even as an attorney, I wouldn't attempt to interpret a living will in an emergency situation, and I don't think you should either. Thanks again for listening.